Good morning, and thank you for joining us here today. I want to acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the signatories of Treaty 6, and I acknowledge the Métis people who share a deep connection with this land. My name is Shannon Phillips. I'm the MLA for Lethbridge West, and I am the official opposition finance critic. Alberta finds itself in a unique situation, possibly a place we've never found ourselves before. Albertans are still struggling to make ends meet. The cost of living has increased dramatically due to inflation, the invasion of Ukraine. A number of international factors are pushing up prices for everyone. And while taming global inflation is beyond the control of a provincial government, the UCP has made that bad situation worse by piling on more costs at every available opportunity. Income taxes, tuition, park and camping fees, utilities, car insurance have all gone up under this government, which has only exacerbated everyone's affordability crisis. At the same time, our vital public services are under immense pressure. Our healthcare system is overwhelmed. Our education system has faced several rounds of cuts by the UCP. And yet, this is all happening at a time when the province is collecting record resource revenue. Despite higher energy prices, we aren't seeing the jobs boom in the energy industry like we have in the past. Instead, Albertans are falling further and further behind as wage growth continues to be the slowest in Canada. And as we look ahead to the future, economists are saying there are some choppy waters ahead. In fact, the only thing that might save us from the worst of a looming recession is to hope that energy prices stay high. That is not the way that we can protect Albertans and their pocketbooks as they navigate this crisis of inflation and affordability. Our economy, our finances, our public services are all facing instability. That means that it is our responsibility to bring forward a plan to address the immediate challenges facing Albertans, restore stability for families, and secure our economic future. So for more on that, I will turn things over to our leader, Rachel Notley.
Well, thank you very much, Shannon. And as Shannon mentioned, Albertans are struggling. Many of the people I've spoken to recently can barely afford to put food on their table or pay their power bill. They're hanging on by a thread, and many are just a few dollars away from not being able to pay their rent or their mortgage. Meanwhile, our public services are crumbling. If an Albertan needs medical help, well, they have to wait several hours at the ER. Just the other day, wait times at the Stollery reached 17 hours. I can imagine the profound level of anxiety that would create for those parents. Another place, one doctor even said that they've had people die in the waiting room as they wait for medical attention. And when someone calls an ambulance, they truly don't know not only when it will arrive, but if it will arrive. At the same time, our schools are under-resourced and post-secondary tuition has skyrocketed. Yet this is all happening at a time when the province is collecting absolute record resource revenue. And this should never be happening in a province as blessed as ours. So we need a plan to address these challenges. Now, earlier this year, I promised that an NDP government will finally get Alberta off the resource royalty roller coaster. To do so, we need to first recognize a few things. First of all, we need to understand that this revenue is unreliable. We can't count on another energy price boom to pay for regular operational spending for any length of time. And that's why we need to save and invest the majority of the province's royalty windfall. Next, we need to take immediate action to help Albertans facing a cost of living crisis, and we need to repair the damage done to public health care and education systems. In the medium and long term, what we need to do is build a more diversified, resilient economy. And lastly, we must focus on getting the best return on investment through consultation with Albertans and experts. And that's what brings us to today. These are big challenges facing our province. The decisions we make today with respect to our surplus will have an impact on future generations of Albertans. So we need to be strategic and thoughtful. So I asked my team, I asked Shannon, who could help us with this? And it didn't take us long to realize that there isn't anyone better than Todd Hirsch. So I asked Todd if he'd be willing to help draft a report on how we could use this windfall in resource revenue to do several things. Address the affordability crisis, repair the damage done to our public services, build a more diversified and resilient economy, all while getting the strongest return on investment and understanding this revenue stream is unpredictable at best. So this is a monumental task, but Todd's graciously agreed. And there is no doubt in my mind that he's the right person to do it. Todd served as chief economist at ATB for the past 15 years, where he's been a trusted voice on public finance and the economy across our province. To me, good leadership means seeking out the best advice I can find, and that's why I'm so pleased that Todd has agreed to work with us. His insights and his expertise will be valuable as we look for solutions to these challenges. So I'll now turn it over to Todd to share a few words. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you, Shannon. It's a real privilege to be here with both of you this morning. Rachel, as you and Shannon both mentioned, we are in interesting times. We've gone through a period of intense turmoil with the pandemic. And just as we thought everything was getting back to normal, suddenly the global economy is sideswiped by Ukraine, sideswiped by inflation, central banks around the world slamming on monetary policy, global financial market instability. We're seeing high inflation along with markets' wild swings. It feels like it's happening on a daily basis. And at the same time, Albertans continue to struggle to make ends meet. Our public services under immense strain, and we face a rapidly changing and evolving economy. However, the province is now collecting record resource royalties, which represent a really great opportunity for us to use this money to address our immediate challenges and set us down the path of long-term prosperity. Opportunities like this don't come around all the time, and in fact, it might be our last, so we can't let it slip away. I think everyone remembers the bumper sticker. Please God, grant us another boom. Here it is. This time, we're going to be smart about it. I was honored to be asked by Rachel to provide advice on how we can take advantage of this opportunity. I know Rachel to be a responsible, listen to experts, and is a pragmatic leader, and that's why I'm happy to take on this role. Shortly, I'll begin reaching out and consulting with a range of experts, investors, economists, business and labor leaders, might even talk to my mom, to gain their feedback, because it's important that we hear from a wide range of experts and Albertans. I'll bring that wisdom together and deliver a report early in the new year. I hope to bring back the best advice I can. In fact, I will bring back the best advice I can for the long-term benefits of all Albertans. I look forward to the work ahead and the chance to make a contribution to our province that will last generations. Turn it back over to Rachel.
Well, thank you very much, Todd, and we are so honored to have you taking on this task for us, and I very much look forward to working with you and hearing from you with respect to this project as we move forward in these very turbulent financial times here in the province of Alberta. So we're very happy, any one of the three of us, Shannon, Todd, or myself, to take any questions you might have.
Tom from Global. Todd, understandably, in your previous role, you stayed away from politics. You stayed away from this sort of stuff. Do you view this as a partisan job? I mean, you're tying on with the NDP here. Is that how you view this position, or do you hope this report will go off to government as well?
I don't see it so much as a partisan job, rather I see this as a responsibility as an Albertan. I've got expertise. Not only was I at ATB for 15 years, I taught public finance at the University of Calgary for 9 years. In a lot of ways, I've been trained in my whole adult career for this task that Rachel has asked me to do. So I don't see it in the view of politics. I see this as a view of responsibility I have as an Albertan with some expertise in this area to provide advice.
The government. Sorry, Tom. The government has promised a revenue review. I don't know if that's going to be coming. We haven't heard that yet. But this advice you give, is it just going to look at how to manage the surplus? Will you be looking at tax policy? Will you be looking at spending policy? How broad are you going to get here? This is the PST question. So.
Well, PST is beyond the scope of what I've been asked to comment on or provide advice on. Specifically, Rachel has asked me, we need advice, how do we deal with this surplus that we're experiencing and are likely to experience in the coming years? So I'm going to focus on that. I'm not going to get into the weeds of revenues and different things. That's a different conversation, but I'll be focusing on the surplus.
I'm going to sneak one more in just because I have the mic to Rachel. We get cabinet today. I'm sure we'll be asking you again later today about it, but what do you hope you see in this cabinet, and what kind of cabinet do Albertans need right now?
Well, honestly, I think what I hope to see is not something that the UCP can deliver. The UCP has been an agent of chaos, of conflict, of cost, basically since they've been in government, and no amount of reorganizing the chairs is going to change that. You know, what I look forward to is an opportunity to talk with Albertans about the best path forward as envisioned by Alberta's NDP in the next election.
Any other questions in the room? Other questions on the phone? Just a reminder to press *9 if you're on the phone. Use the raise hand function if you're joining us via Zoom. If you could say your name and your outlet at the top, we'll go to our first caller.
Hi, this is Josh Aldridge with the Calgary Herald. This is for Rachel Notley. You talk about that investment and saving of the surplus. Have you determined to what degree you would like to invest and what degree you would like to save, or is that kind of what Todd has been brought in to determine? My apologies if this was addressed. The reception has been pretty sketchy online.
You bet. Sorry about that. So just so you know, back in, I'm going to say June or July, we actually laid out some principles that we would rely on in the course of consulting on what to be done with the surplus. And one of the things that, generally speaking, I've been talking about is that we need to understand, because this revenue is unreliable, that you know, the majority of it should be focused on saving and investment. Now, I see saving and investment being, in some cases, the same thing. And it's a question of how we get the best return on that investment. And so that's where we're going to be asking Todd to give us advice. But really, you know, I mean, in the scope of how best to use the surplus to position Alberta for both a sustainable fiscal structure as well as addressing the concerns around affordability and the crisis in so many of our public services, and the need to move towards diversification, we're giving Todd a pretty wide-ranging room to give us those recommendations.
You have the convention this weekend in Calgary. What are some of the top issues that you're looking at this weekend? What are some of the top concerns that you have heading in? I guess it gets underway here right away, but what are you kind of really looking at this weekend?
Well, I mean, first of all, I mean, we're very excited. This is going to be the biggest convention we've ever had in Calgary, and it may be the biggest convention we've ever had in Alberta, in the Alberta NDP ever. So we're very excited about that. We've had candidates and volunteers out on the doorstep in every corner of this province for some time now. However, they haven't really had a chance to get together and talk to each other and share their experiences or talk about what they're hearing from folks because of COVID. So this is an opportunity for that. Certainly, we look forward to engaging in a good conversation about the vision we want to present to Albertans as we head towards the next election. What's our plan? And I know that a lot of the conversation will be focused on matters of addressing the affordability crisis that so many Albertans are facing, addressing the crisis in our healthcare system that keeps so many families up at night, and ensuring that we build a resilient jobs economy. So those are the major heads of the policy discussion that we will be having, and of course there'll be more to say as the convention unfolds, and our delegates get a chance to engage, and I get a chance to talk for almost a half an hour.
Hi there, this is Kelly Kreiderman from the Globe and Mail. I'm wondering whether at your convention this weekend, how much discussion there will be of campaign strategy, and including how you'll address Danielle Smith, obviously linking the Alberta NDP to the federal NDP and the federal Liberal constantly, and how you'll react to that line of political attack.
Certainly, our delegates may want us to talk about that, and we will be happy to have that conversation with them. There is an election panel that I believe is going to be happening this afternoon at the beginning of the convention, so that question may come up. You'll know, Kelly, that my view of it is that, quite frankly, that line of attack is kind of old. I think that in reality, we have a record, and I have a record, and our caucus has a record of standing up for Albertans in relation to the federal government, in relation to other provincial governments, regardless of what party each one represents at any given time, because that's the job of anybody leading the province of Alberta. The real question is whether you stand up for Albertans in a way that involves actual practical plans that are designed to succeed on behalf of Albertans, or whether you're standing up for Alberta in a cynical way designed solely to generate your own political support within the province, understanding all the time that the so-called strategies you're talking about will never succeed. That's what Albertans have been subjected to over the last 3.5 years, as opposed to what we did when we were in government, which was work the phones and work the conferences and work the meeting rooms to get an actual solution and a project delivered for the people of Alberta on many fronts, but in one case, as you know, TMX.
And I know most of the discussion that we have in Alberta politics right now is about unity of the UCP party. How would you describe unity in your party, and what is the status of the third party that you were talking about hiring in June to oversee internal harassment complaints? Has that been addressed, or has a decision been made there?
So first of all, I would say that we have a very, very inspiring level of unity within the Alberta NDP. Folks are absolutely driven to end the chaos, the conflict, the cost that we have seen from this UCP government for so many years, and to get back to the job of making life better for Albertans. In terms of that particular the process, there were about 2 or 3 different independent processes that were initiated. It was mostly discussed at our provincial council. I know that there has been a report prepared and discussed with the executive. I know that there was a policy taken to provincial council that was approved, and certainly some of the reviews are underway, and some of that work is complete, and the process and the policy and the access to independent oversight is already in place.
Hi, it's Brianna Carson-Smith from Global Edmonton. I also wanted to ask about the AGMs this weekend, specifically about one of the UCP's resolutions. It says the resolution is to halt the practice of any student being taught that by reason of their ethnic heritage, they're privileged, they're inherently racist, or they bear historic guilt due to said ethnic heritage, or that all of society is a racist system. I wonder what your opinions and thoughts are of A, that resolution, and B, what message that sends if the UCP decides to approve that.
Well, I think that the fact that that resolution is there is deeply troubling, particularly given that it's coming on the heels of the statements made by Danielle Smith, and with most recently in terms of her understanding of the experience of discrimination in Alberta by hundreds of thousands of Albertans each and every day. And those statements, of course, demonstrating a complete disconnect and awareness of what it's like and how many folks must struggle with discrimination and racism every day. It's also troubling given her past statements, links to anti-Semitic blogs, comments about the veracity of the residential school experience and that kind of thing, as well as her deeply misinformed comments with respect to the Ukraine, or with respect to Ukraine. That being said, the way in which that record and the appearance of that resolution can be partially fixed is for their convention to wholeheartedly reject that resolution. And if they fail to, then I think that sends a very clear message to Albertans that this UCP is very interested in the extreme views of a very small group of Albertans, and that they are uninterested in creating a welcoming and inclusive province that respects the experiences of folks who share a wide range of characteristics and come from all over the world looking for a place that they can call home.
Nope, actually everything's been asked. Thank you.
Hey there, Janet French from the CBC. Rachel, I'm just wondering if you could talk a tiny bit louder just because the mic is just not picking up that well. I'm wondering, just hypothetically speaking, say today's cabinet shuffle involves a reconfiguration of some of the ministries. What would you think about that, given that there's a provincial election coming in 7 months?
Well, listen, as I said, and you might, I'm sorry, I'll repeat myself a little bit just because you did say you weren't sure if you could hear, but the UCP has truly been a very consistent agent of mostly chaos, conflict, and cost. And I'm not convinced that there is anybody in that caucus that is capable of changing that record. For instance, they've just never been willing to talk to people with expert advice who might differ from theirs and to get a sense of what the most pragmatic, well-informed path forward is for the greatest number of Albertans. And I would contrast that with what we are doing here today, bringing on Todd to give us advice after he speaks to economists across the board and fiscal advisors across the board to give us the best advice possible. So the reality is that there's not going to be any change no matter how they rearrange the chairs on the deck, Janet, because I don't believe they're equipped to do it.
Yeah, sorry, let me just clarify that question. I didn't just mean the people sitting in the chairs. I meant who the chairs are in charge of, like actual structural changes to government ministries. Do you see that as problematic at all?
Oh, I see. Just the depth and breadth of change before the election.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Sorry. Okay. So obviously, Danielle Smith does not have the mandate to engage in the scope of change that she has been signaling either during the election or since the election. Less than 1% of Albertans chose her to be premier, and she simply doesn't have the authority to engage in wholesale change at this point. Quite honestly, practice would suggest that by January or February, the government should go in to essentially a holding pattern because we are so close to an upcoming election. And so I would suggest that if she was going to respect democracy and democratic traditions, that she would bring in a cabinet that would mostly focus on trying to reduce the chaos and to try and stabilize a government that has been operating on a flawed form of autopilot for about 18 months as we've all sat back and watched this UCP government focus on its own internal drama. So that's what I would suggest we should see from this UCP cabinet shuffle. We may or may not, but in any event, she doesn't have the mandate for any kind of significant change.
And that's all for today. Thank you.
Thank you.
So much for watching, and to learn more, check out albertasfuture.ca.